Welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the prelim fights for UFC Fight Night on ESPN Plus, Blachowicz versus Santos. As I've already predicted the main card fights for this card, so I'll be predicting the prelim fights for this card in this video. So without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the card, our first fight of the prelim. So in our first fight, we have in the lightweight division, Teymur Ismagulov versus Joel Alvarez. So looking at Joel Alvarez, I see a fighter coming from a weaker circuit, in my opinion. Yes, he has a pretty record, but the competition hasn't been the best. And yes, their record looks pretty decent. Some of his opponents' records look pretty decent, but I think it's a weak circuit overall. That Mexican circuit it's not the best. It's still a developing circuit. I think it's only had been developing for about 5 years, really. Maybe less, maybe a little bit more, but not the longest tenure, not the best competition. And like looking at his game, it's not the best. He's big, he's young, he's strong. He has some good grappling for that circuit. But when he saw the one time he ventured outside of that circuit, he got knocked out in like 15 seconds in Russia. Now you're going against a fighter who's thrived in that Russian circuit in Teymur Ismagulov, who has a much more well-rounded skill set. And I've seen Joel Alvarez show a weak takedown defense, and he kind of has good grappling off his back, but who has he really submitted? He submitted a bunch of weak competition, in my opinion. And I think, yes, he can develop in the UFC and get better, but I think Ismagulov is just much more developed. And with that sambo and that wrestling and that grappling and all that stuff he dealt with over in the Russian circuit and been able to thrive in that, I think he'll be able to do pretty much what he did in his debut fight, take Joel Alvarez down and kind of shut off his triangles and set off his transition and just pretty much just school him a bit. Not really dog him out too much or beat him up too much, but just take him down, work on him, and just kind of grind him out to a decision. So in this fight, I got Teymur Ismagulov via decision. Now on to our next fight we have in the lightweight division, Rustam Khabilov versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. So you got Sambo versus BJJ, basically. Two grapplers, like primarily grapplers, facing off against each other. You got Carlos Diego Ferreira with BJJ, Khabilov with Sambo. And you got, I think Ferreira is a little bit of a better striker, in my opinion. He has more danger. He's more deadly with his hands just a little bit. But I don't think it's that much that's going to be significant. And as far as when I go, you got a grappler versus grappler matchups, I go with the grappler who has more of the ability to dictate where the fight will go. And with Sambo, it's much like wrestling. They dictate where the fight will go over the grappler more often than not. Like more often than not than the BJJ guy. Like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners usually don't have good offensive takedowns. And they only defend takedowns that will often. Whereas wrestlers and Sambo fighters usually have good takedown defense and good takedown offense, so they usually dictate where the fight is going. And I see that with Khabilov versus Ferreira. I see Khabilov having a better takedown offense and takedown defense and being able to dictate where the fight goes. I feel like he's a stronger fighter as well. I think he'll be able to dictate. I think it'll be a pretty close, even fight. I don't think either one of them has too much of an edge on the feet, but I think this is by Khabilov having an edge on dictating where the fight will go. I'll lean it towards him. So in this fight, I think it'll be very close. But I think Khabilov having, been able to dictate where the fight goes, like whether the fight's standing or not, I think that will lean the fight towards him in a very close fight. I think he'll mix that in with his strikes and his takedowns to throw Ferreira off. And I think he wins a very close fight. So in this fight, I got Rustam Khabilov via decision. Now on to our next fight we have in the welterweight division, Prazeres versus Ismail Naurdiev. And I don't really know how to say his name, but I don't think it really matters too much. So looking at this guy, Ismail Naurdiev, I wasn't really impressed by him. I looked him up. Yes, he's pretty decent. He has a pretty good skill set, but nothing that you would think is going to make him excel in the UFC, especially in this day. Maybe it was like 10 years ago, like, oh, this guy's amazing. But in this day and age, what he's doing, I don't really see nothing too impressed about him. Yes, he can throw kicks. He can throw this. He can throw some spinning back stuff and this and that. But nothing too impressive. No real super technical about his striking, no real heavy hands, no amazing jiu-jitsu, takedown defense, nothing that stands out too much about him. And when I look at him against Prazeres, I see that a guy that does, Ismail Naurdiev, a guy who doesn't really, what's called, when he getting people coming for him, he doesn't really circle it out well. So you're coming like with a straight, or you're like blitzing him, he doesn't circle out, so you can push him back. And you got Prazeres, who's like a mini tank, and that's what he does. He pushes you back and runs through you. If you like don't really have a good ability to circle out, then he's gonna run you over. And I see Ismail Naurdiev having a difficulties with circling. His circling is not the best. He needs to work on that. And to go in there against Prazeres, that's the wrong person to not have that on, like, you don't have that ability, or you're not proficient at circling. If you're not proficient at circling, Prazeres will run right through you. And I think that's pretty much what Prazeres will do. I think he'll just blitz him down the middle, manhandle him, try to take him, like either knock him out or take him down and maul him. I think that's what Prazeres is going to do. He's going to be in his face nonstop, definitely being the shorter fight. That's what he has to do. He has to be in your face. He has to make it ugly, has to get in on you and hurt you. And I think this is style, and that's what he's going to do to Ismail Naurdiev. I see Ismail Naurdiev really having that ability to mix things up enough or circle out, and I just see him getting this pushed back and mauled. I think he'll have at least a good showing, enough that he'll give Prazeres something to worry about, but I just think eventually Prazeres is just going to break him down, and I see a second round TKO. So in this fight, I have Michel Prazeres via second round TKO. Now on to our next fight. We have in the lightweight division, Teymur Hadzovic versus Polo Reyes. And I'm not going to say his name too many times. I'm going to say Teymur because that last name I might stutter, or whatever the case. I might mess that name up a lot, that last name up a lot. So I'm going to call him Teymur for the most part of this prediction right here. But whatever the case is, looking at this fight, you got Teymur versus Polo Reyes. Looking at this, I'm not going to go on that backstory too much, but I see as far as how they match up, I think Polo Reyes throws much more value. I think he throws at least 2-1 as far as based on stats to Teymur Hadzovic. He's had a much better record in UFC than Hadzovic, and went against pretty much the same level of competition and fared a little bit better than Hadzovic. Polo Reyes throws more. He has heavier hands. He has more versatility to his strike. I think really he's just going to outwork Hadzovic, and I probably, along with the outwork, just pretty much deal some heavy damage on him and probably get him out of that. I think it's still a competitive fight as far as how they match up there, like evenly skilled wise, but I feel like the volume and the power, along with the power, kind of throws him out. It's not like Polo Reyes is so much better than him, in my opinion. It's just that this is how they match up. You're around the same skill level, and this guy's outworking you, and he hits harder than you, a little bit more technical on the feet. I don't think he had to worry too much about getting grappled like he did in some of these other fights, where I think more so going to be on the feet. But I just think Polo Reyes will outwork him and just land some pretty clean shots. I think he takes him out in the third round in a fairly respectable performance by both men. But I think by that third round, Polo Reyes will have worn him down in the first two, then take him out in the third. So in this fight, I got Polo Reyes via third round TKO. Now on to our next fight we have in the women's flyweight division, Veronica Macedo versus Jillian Robertson. So looking at this women's fight right here in the flyweight division, you got Veronica Macedo, who is more so of a striker. Haven't really seen her do too well in the grappling aspects, more so getting manhandled and beaten up by other chicks, maybe bigger chicks. You got Jillian Robertson, who's more a well-rounded fighter. You look at her record, she can strike, but most of her wins seem to come by grappling submissions and just, taking advantage of people. And we got two fighters who really kind of fared the same way. And as a matter of fact, Jillian Robertson actually has wins in the UFC, and Macedo is 0-2. But you fought Andrea Lee and Ashley Evans Smith. Those are two solid women's fighters right there in this weight class that really are factors in this flyweight division. And as a matter of fact, they just fought each other this last card. So what a coincidence. And those are two pretty solid fighters. So it's not like nothing bad to lose to those opponents. But just looking at Veronica Macedo, when you're going against a fighter where I see one fighter who's more so a striker versus a well-rounded fighter, you're going to go with that well-rounded fighter, or you can go with that fighter that's more so a grappler than a fighter that is a striker. Because this is MMA, and they can just take you completely out of your element, where you really can't take them completely out of their element. They can just take you down and work you. And I think that's what Jillian Robertson will do. I think she will mix in those grappling, mixing that takedowns, and really just grind her out to the side. I think Macedo is tough, and she can hold her own in there. But I think Jillian Robertson is going to just put her in uncomfortable places and keep her in those uncomfortable places and really never allow her to get her momentum. And I just feel Jillian Robertson grinds her out to a decision. So in this fight, I got Jillian Robertson via decision. Now into our co-prelim headliner, we have in the featherweight division, Daniel Teymur versus Chris Fishgold. So Teymur, this is basically looking at his two fights in the UFC, 0-2. You want to look at his losses, it's been to grappling. And Chris Fishgold has solid grappling, and he can also hold his own with Teymur on the feet. I'm not saying he could beat Teymur on the feet. I'm pretty sure he would lose it in a striking match with Teymur, but I'm saying he could hold his own at least there and gain his respect. And along with that respect, he can mix in takedowns and pretty much put Teymur where he does not want to be. And that's on the ground, dealing with grappling. And this is another one of these matches where he's going to face, I guess, his kryptonite or his weakness, or a style match that he doesn't like, he doesn't fancy too much. And I think Fishgold can put him in these places where he doesn't want to be. So 0-2 in the UFC against people who mix in the grappling. I think the first fight was mostly grappling. In the second fight in the UFC, he got pieced up on the feet, then grappled and submitted. I think this fight, I think Fishgold is just kind of in the middle. He's not going to just lay on him, but he's definitely not going to probably piece him up on the feet, but he's going to mix both the full mixed martial arts. He's going to hold his own with the feet, mix in the strikes, set up takedowns, and once he gets his takedown, then he kind of schools him there on the ground and takes advantage of him. But Teymur, being the tough guy that he is and the durable fighter that he is, I just think he gets grinded to a decision just by the more well-rounded fighter with less holes in his game. So in this fight, I got Chris Fishgold via decision. Now on to our prelim headliner we have in the welterweight division, Carlo Pedersoli Jr. versus Dwight Grant. So looking at Dwight Grant, pretty big for the weight class, 6'1". He's built like a gargoyle, just like Alex Oliveira. And Alex Oliveira, in his fight against Pedersoli, just grabbed, pretty much caught a kick and swung on him. And I think took him out with like less than a minute, like 20 seconds. And Dwight Grant had the same build and possibly could do the same thing, but obviously Dwight Grant is not Alex Oliveira, not the same level of skills, not the same level of experience, definitely not the same level of accomplishments. And just looking at how they match up, I think Carlo Pedersoli is just a better fighter in my opinion as far as how he mixes skills. So I think what I see with Dwight Grant, he kind of swings kind of wild, has those wild loopy punches, but he has a lot of, he could use those pretty well. It's not the most technical looking striking, but it's effective. Then like as far as his grappling, we really don't see it too much. But as far as Pedersoli, you see a more technical, more crisp strikes, faster, more fluid. And then also he does a very good job of mixing in strikes with takedowns. And I think that adds a whole nother element to this fight, or at least to the game. Another thing for Dwight Grant to deal with, whereas I think Pedersoli is more so going to be dealing with having to dodge those looping wild punches with a lot of power, whereas Pedersoli will bring striking and grappling and make Dwight Grant have to worry about the takedown, had to worry about strikes, had to worry about spinning kicks to the head and all this other type of stuff that he will be bringing to him. And Pedersoli just throws a whole rack of volume that will, kind of freeze Dwight Grant up and allow for these takedowns to be even more successful. I just think Pedersoli just mixes the game together pretty well, throws Dwight Grant off, freezes him up, get these takedowns. It just pretty much kind of shuts him down and don't really allow him to land that power as like he wants to land in this fight. And just kind of grinds him out to decision. And yeah, just outworks him, outgrinds him, takes him out of his element, and just beats him on points, basically. Beats him to decision. And I think he does it rather comfortably if he does not get caught. And I don't think he'll get caught too much, or definitely not that cleanly. I just think he'll just mix it up, get those takedowns, fight a rather safe fight, and win a rather safe decision. So in this fight, I got Carlo Pedersoli Jr. via decision. And that concludes my fight predictions for the prelims of UFC Fight Night on ESPN Plus, Blachowicz versus Santos. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and come back for more videos. Peace.